everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this gatefold card using Joyful Sunflower and some random stamping. So this is the stamp set, Joyful Sunflower, and it has thin cuts. And I'm going to use black cardstock and white cardstock. So I'm going to start out by cutting my base with the black cardstock at 8.5 by 5.5. And then I'm going to score at 2 1/8 from each side. So I'm just going to score it at 2 1/8 and 1/8, and then flip it around and then score it again at 2 1/8. And I'm making sure that my center portion is 4 1/4, just to be sure. And then I'll go ahead and fold those two sides in and then smooth them down with my bone folder. So that's the base for my gatefold. And now I'm going to cut a piece at 3 3/4. This is white daisy cardstock at 3 3/4 by 5 1/4, and then the rest of it I'm going to use to stamp some sunflowers that I will thin cut with the dies that come with the set. Okay, so I'm picking out a sunflower stamp, and I'm just going to mount it on a 2.5 by 3.5 inch block. And I'm going to random stamp just the flower heads of this sunflower using pewter ink over this piece of white daisy. And then I realized that I forgot to flip my Versamat over, and I want the cushion side of it for stamping. So I flipped everything over, and then I have a piece of scratch paper behind my white daisy cardstock base so that it can catch the extra ink. And you want to stamp off the edge of your cardstock so that it will look a little more random. And I'm taking this Post-it note to use as kind of a mask to block off the bottom portion of that stamped image so that I just get the flower heads stamped down. And this stamping, it doesn't have to be perfect, because you'll see what I do with it. I'm going to cut this panel up, and then there are going to be things layered on top, so don't worry too much about precise stamping. It's more just to get the overall look and random placement of your flowers. So I'm just going all around, and I'm going to fill up this whole panel. And then later on I'm going to cut that panel in half, but I wanted to stamp it all together because the eye kind of puts it back together in one piece when you have it so close, each side so close to each other. So you'll see what I mean after I start assembling the card. But that's the reason that I'm not stamping this in two pieces, just to get some continuity there with the design. Even though the design is random, it'll make more sense to your eye once it's all together on the card front. Okay, so I have that panel all stamped, and now I'm going to stamp a couple of flowers and my sentiment that I'm going to cut out using the thin cuts. So I'm not sure how many flowers I'm going to want and where exactly I'm going with this. So I'm going to stamp 2, and we'll just see what happens. And I'm keeping all of this in because I make mistakes often, and you can recover from them, and it's not a problem. So I just want to leave everything in, and you'll see where I go with this. This background stamp, a trick to get it to stamp evenly is to make sure that you can't see any bubbles when you mount it on your block. So that's why I kind of peeled it away and put it back, because there were a couple air bubbles there. So I wanted to get an even stamp. And then I'm stamping the sentiment, sending sunshine your way, over it in black ink. I stamped the base of it in sage. Okay, so I'm going to color everything in in using the tri-blend markers, and then I'll skip ahead. So I've colored these and then I've cut them out using the thin cuts. And I didn't worry about the bottom portion of those flowers because I was thinking I was going to trim them off. So you'll see where I go. Okay, so now I've cut that panel in half so that I can mount each half on each side of the gate on the front of my card. So I'm just going to glue those directly to each side. And get it all smoothed out using my bone folder. And then I'll mount the other side. And so when it's all flat and together, it kind of makes sense to your eye with those cuts there. So I know I'm going to mount that sentiment right in the middle there, and I'm just going to put my foam tape on underneath the left side so that you can open your card. And now I'm just kind of fussing with where I want to place my flower and what looks right, and do I want it behind or in front of that sentiment. And I'm just kind of playing around with things before I start putting adhesive down to just kind of figure out what I like and what makes sense. And so decided to trim that flower and see what it looks like tucked behind. And sometimes you just have to fuss around with it, and in this case I decided that I needed some shimmer trim, so I wasn't sure if I was going to use some ribbon too. And then I decided to go ahead and trim that other flower. So first things first, let's get that shimmer trim down. So I trimmed it to the same size as each side of that gatefold panel, which is 2 1/8. So I'm going to adhere those right in the center, and I'm using the measurements on my Versamat to kind of figure out where the middle is between the top and the bottom. And shimmer trim is self-adhesive, so it's pretty easy to work with. So we'll get that down first. And then I'm going to pot the sentiment with, I'm using foam tape this is the leftover centers from the shaker foam. You can use that foam tape for other projects, so this is one of them that I'm going to use it for. So I'm just putting my foam tape down underneath the left side so that I can still open my card. Okay, and then I finally decided that I needed the whole flower. So off camera I re-stamped and colored in and then die cut this sunflower. I wanted to use the entire thing for the front of my card. So I'm attaching that with foam tape and then a little glue dot. Okay, so now I need a panel for the inside of my card so that I can write inside my card. So I cut a piece of white daisy cardstock and I'm going to mount that inside. And then I decided that since I had that other flower, why not use it? So I'm going to put that inside my card. And it needed to be trimmed just a smidge more to fit. And then I'm going to glue that down with Aqua Tombow into the inside of my card. So mistakes happen, but sometimes they're opportunities. So this worked out. Okay, so there's my card. Now I'm still fussing with that other flower, but I decided this is what I liked. So there's my finished card. So you can still get this stamp set, Joyful Sunflower, for another week. It's available until August 31st in my online store. I'll make a list of supplies with links in the description below. And The URL is in the upper right corner of your screen if you'd like to shop in my online store. I appreciate you watching my video today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.